What phrase is a dead giveaway that the person talking is a piece of shit? Do you know who I am? Also C. Do you know who my dad is? Only acceptable usage. Do you know who I am? No. Good. Turns and flees. There was an old commercial with a student taking a proctored exam in a large classroom. He's late putting the exam on the proctor's desk, and so the proctor won't accept his completed test. The student asks, "Do you have any idea who I am?" The proctor replies with, "No, you're late and I don't care who you are." The student grabs all the tests from the proctor's desk, adds his own to the pile, and then shuffles them up and slaps the pile of tests on the desk. Makes eye contact with the proctor and replies, "Good," and then walks off. Since then I've always agreed this is the best way to use that line. Pretty sure there's a second acceptable use, when you have legit amnesia. I had an interesting opposite experience with this one. I had a friend whose dad was a sergeant in the state police. He was high up the chain, and practically everyone in the state police knew him because he was the head of a specific unit within the police. So my friend and I get pulled over one day. My friend was driving and was going a little over the speed limit, and the state police officer came up to his window and did the typical speech, E.G. license and insurance. The officer had my friend's license in hand and asked, "So when are you going to tell me who your dad is?" My friend was stunned, as his dad has told him before that his dad's name isn't to be used to get out of tickets. The officer handed my friend his license back and just walked away. Later, when we arrived back at my friend's house, he told his dad what happened. His dad said, "That's really disappointing. If you were speeding, you deserve a ticket." After that, my friend told me his dad was able to track down the officer and, from what I understand, told him he should have given his son a ticket. The friend that I had and his family were really straight shooters and honorable people. My experience with law enforcement, including my father, who was a police officer, is that it's a big club and they do favors for each other. "All my exes are crazy," is priming you to not talk to the exes so you don't find out the person is a jerk. What's the common denominator here? If you complain about smelling shit everywhere you go, check the bottom of your shoes. If you run into an a-hole in the morning, you ran into an a-hole. If you run into a-holes all day, you're the a-hole. Raylan Givens. Jesus. I work with two men like that. One is on wife number 5 and claims none of the divorces are his fault. Working with him for 2 years, all those divorces are his fault. The second is a new hire that I initially liked. Then I found out he was harassing women in our workplace and calling every woman a bitch. Turned out he was living with his parents in their basement, and angry none of the women at work wanted to date him. This is just how I am, was raised, was taught. I hate when people say this as if it gives them some sort of free pass to be a dick. My brother, who is in his edgy 13-15 phase, loves saying, "Well, I am an a-hole," as if that's an acceptable answer. I've always had the belief that your personality can never be an excuse for hurting other people. If someone says, "Well, that's just who I am," then they simply have to change themselves, end of story. Otherwise, nobody will want to be around them. My mother says this all the time. Thing is, she was actually raised by nannies and her own parents were rarely home. She didn't even have the same nanny as her siblings. So it's hard for her to know how to be a good parent. She haven't had good examples. And my father came from an abusive home and was beaten infinitely worse than he ever beat my brothers and I. So no, they weren't the best of people. But on the other hand, I don't know anyone who has tried so hard to overcome their faults and shortcomings as my parents. You've ruined my day. When somebody else is upset for good reason. My ex-wife played this card constantly. It became a family joke. Mom says we ruined her, insert holiday here. I got into a car wreck in our very long and steep gravel driveway, and my moms wouldn't take me to the hospital when I was coughing up blood from it because I'd ruined Christmas. Christmas was still a week away. My trauma is worse than yours. People that think trauma is a competition are the absolute worst. You're lucky you're not in my situation, after just opening up about something. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. What about, if you can't handle me at my worst, then please tell me now before things get too serious. I'm paranoid about rejection. As a person with a chronic illness, I can see this being applicable in a physical sense. Like, if you can't handle me when I'm in terrible pain and just want to stay in bed, then you don't deserve me when I'm fully ambulatory. However, people who say this don't ever mean it in this regard. What they mean is, sometimes I'm a complete a-hole for no goddamn reason. That was so long ago, stop bringing up the past. If they haven't apologized for something and are demanding you move on and forgive them, that's a coward's way of saying they don't feel sorry for what they did and are blaming you for being hurt. That's also what narcissists say as a last resort when you've really backed them into a corner, and they can't avoid the mirror of hypocrisy that you're holding up to their face. It's the final way to avoid having to admit to any wrongdoing. There's also the opposite situation, where they say they forgive you and yet bring up those supposedly forgiven incidents as weapons against you in arguments. I'm a piece of shit. At least they're self-aware. Nah, in my experience those types will just use their self-awareness as a weapon. My friend would be horrible to me, then when I tried to talk to him about it he'd say, "Well, I'm a horrible person and you keep talking to me so you deserve it." Someone once told me, quite recently, as I opened up to them about being deeply depressed, "Well, at least you don't have kids. It's amazing how terrible some people can be." My boyfriend tried to explain to her husband how depressed and scared she was because she knew it wasn't normal. He told her that she just needed to exercise more. Exercise was his answer to everything. He was an exercise addict. I can't remember the word for it. I know the manager, or any other authority figure that they think gives them priority or power over others. "We can be friends again when you are feeling better." Ah yes, fair weather friends. Certainly not worth your time, though most aren't even this obvious about it. Depends on the friend, to be honest. If you feeling bad makes you let it out on me and talking does not improve the situation, on the other hand I'd be out and not coming back at all. Relax, it was just a joke, and people who are really rude and say, "That's just how I am," or, "I say it like it is. I'm just being honest," after being a total a-hole. I'm not racist, but... It's always fun to start a sentence with, "I don't want to sound racist but," and then say something totally unracist, just to mess with people. Examples: "I don't want to sound racist but how do I get to the train station?" "I don't want to sound racist but, The Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies." Similarly with others' versions like "I'm not sexist but." "Let me explain this in a language you can understand." "I'm sorry you feel that way," intended as an apology. I get what you're saying, but sometimes someone is being perfectly polite and another person will get upset. Being offended does not equate to being right. When I had to set healthy boundaries with family, they were upset, and I genuinely felt bad that they were upset. But I also know that those boundaries were important for everyone. Everything happens for a reason. While I agree this is annoying as shit, I think most people that say it are well-meaning. It's not just annoying. It can be fucking traumatizing. There are people who say that to people who have been raped, to people who have lost someone important, to people who have just been fucked hard by life by things they could not control. What reason would make these things any better? It almost insinuates it was deserved. Just because they are well-meaning doesn't mean it's a nice thing to say. They can think it and keep it to themselves. Chances are the person they want to say it to does not want to hear it. Do as I say, not as I do. This says a lot. 1. They are bossy, controlling. 2. They support double standards. 3. They are special. 4. They do bad things, are a bad role model. 5. They feel no need to fix their behavior. 6. You should ignore their transgressions. Sometimes you're training somebody at work but have a lot of bad habits you've accumulated over the years and have to put some bad habits you may unintentionally display. You're a girl, you need to act like one. I hate hearing this so much. I just say it as I see it. It means, I have no empathy. I've noticed that people get upset with what I think and say, but I've decided that instead of looking inwards at why I'm getting these reactions, I'm just going to double down on being a selfish prick. It's not endearing. It's not a character trait. It's a conscious decision that you think your opinion is the best one in every room at all times. Some people just can't handle the truth. I would never let a woman tell me what I could and couldn't do. Let me call your mother about that. We're all a big family here, equals toxic workplace, abort. I'm older so I know better. Not trying to be an a-hole, but I'm a nice person. Actual nice person doesn't need to say it since action speaks louder than words. What phrase is a dead giveaway that the person talking is a piece of shit? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.